Welcome to the Runner Dudes podcast. Everyone is welcome. Runners are welcome. Walkers are welcome. The running curious are welcome. We're going to widen the door to running and soften the impact for anyone willing to lace up and show up. Today can be the day you take the first steps towards physical, mental, and spiritual well-being and become the person you were intended to be. We hope to inform, inspire, listen, learn, and help you start your own running journey, all while being moderately funny and low-key entertaining. Let's go, baby. Okay, so we got Angie Briggs today.
Hey.
And so everybody give it up for Angie Briggs. And so hopefully I'm not as sweaty today, or not visibly as sweaty. We got Dusty here, and we got Jimmy on the ones and twos.
Hello.
As we always do, we're going to start out with the question to Dusty. And this one is a setup that we're going to throw right into some of Angie's stories.
Yeah.
First of all, this is a big deal. We got Angie Briggs. She's a 9-time?
8-time.
8-time Boston Marathon. Pathetic. Pathetic.
The research on this show is getting sloppy.
That's it. 8, yeah, it really is. Because the research was me thinking in my head. 8-time Boston Marathoner Angie Briggs. So that's such a big deal. We're going to get into some of her Boston experiences. But, Dusty, are there weather conditions that would cause you not to run a race that you have trained 6 months for and traveled hundreds of miles to run? And if yes, what would that look like?
I'd like to say no, that it wouldn't bother me, but I think now, definitely the wind. It's above 14 miles an hour.
Oh, yes.
And it's rainy.
That's the threshold.
I'm a spectator at that point, for sure. Definitely. I would like to think not, because usually you try to train in all weather conditions, but I think that might.
I have been thinking this week and the last 2 weeks in particular, I know that my wife, my coach, everyone that knows me, my family, is tired of me talking about the wind.
Talking about the wind.
Yeah.
That's all I have talked about, and not just talked about, complained about, very strong about it. I've got opinions. There have been moments when I have been running around campus. I'm not proud of this. I've yelled the F word out loud. Like I have, and by the F word I mean freak.
F1,
F1,
F2.
yeah.
Is this an F1
Yes.
tornado is what you said?
That's right. I have turned a corner and like a punch in the face, 40-mile-an-hour wind, and I'm just like, F!
It's like wind so bad they hurt your head. Like
Yes.
I get a headache from them.
100%. The noise and the whole experience. So
Funny how that can shape your attitude for the rest of the day.
that's it. And then now I'm just mad at it. I'm like, this is
Mad.
supposed to be mental, physical, spiritual journey, and I'm just like, how dare you throw wind at me? Don't you know who I am? And that's it. That's my answer. We have been, me and CG have traveled. We went to Boston. And we had that. We talked about your 2018 experience. And my wife asked me, she said, are we running it no matter what? I said, heck no, we ain't running no matter what. I was like, There is a threshold that I'm willing to deal with. And once that's met, we are ordering room service, and we're going to go down and maybe watch some of the runners finish. And so,
Put it on live TV.
yes. And at this point, like even Carmel that's coming up in Indiana, I have trained in hopes to run a fast race. Like I'm not going up there for 26 miles in a 40-mile-an-hour wind. I'm just not doing it. And so I'll go up, and the guys that are running, I'm going to go out. If they choose to run it in some terrible conditions, that's their problem.
Yeah.
That's not mine. So anyway, I figured that I'm a little surprised by that, because I thought you'd be I'm running it no matter what guy.
Maybe about 8 years ago, maybe.
Yeah. Different dude.
Yeah.
What about you, Angie?
It'd be the heat for me.
Heat?
The heat gets me down for sure.
Yeah.
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 Extreme heat. Yeah.
My first marathon was Kentucky Derby, and it was in April, and it ended up being 88 degrees
Oh, no
on
way.
race day.
That sounds miserable.
They were begging people not to run it. They were like, "Here, take a pass to next year." And the reason was at the finish line, I was running it no matter what. That was my first one. I was like, "We're not coming up here not to run it." And at the finish line, people are literally like having heat strokes and falling over and fainting and all the stuff. And I think I was just too naive and unexperienced to be I should have been more concerned.
Right.
That's what.
Yeah.
Now, I remember doing Nashville, finishing, and it was 93. Mm-hmm. I mean, the heat never really has bothered me, but now definitely the wind.
The wind is the worst.
The wind's nasty.
Yes.
But if it's cold and it's rainy, I don't care cold and rainy, but you combine them all.
It's too much.
Mm-hmm.
It's too much. Okay, so we got Angie. Angie, introduce yourself.
I'm Angie Briggs. Don't know really what to say about myself other than I live in Cookeville, married to my husband, Mike Briggs.
Mike Briggs, shout out.
Yep, Mike Briggs, shout out.
Haunted half hero.
He is. I don't know how they run the race without him at this point. But yeah, he's the
100%.
pickup vehicle. Yeah, he's the vehicle at the end of the race, the chase vehicle, I guess.
Anybody who has run the haunted half, it's all thanks to Mike Briggs. And he does all the dirty work that nobody wants to do. And last minute, he's like, I got it. And so all the stuff that setting things up, tearing stuff down. So if you know Mike Briggs or you see Mike Briggs and you've run the haunted half,
Pat him on the back.
give him a hug. Where are you from?
From Salina, Tennessee.
Metropolitan area.
Metropolitan area, Salina, Tennessee, Clay County. Graduated from Salina High School, which does not even exist anymore. It's Clay County High School.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Salina, Tennessee.
And you came to Tennessee Tech, graduate,
Yep.
current PhD student.
Yes.
How's
Guess my
that?
better judgment.
Yeah.
How's that going?
It's rough. It's rough. And
All kinds of free time.
I know.
This is an 8-time Boston marathoner
Yeah.
who's like, you can look at just her shoulders went, it's rough.
Yeah, it is. It's like I tell everybody when I decided to do the PhD, I knew it was a commitment. I knew it would take a lot of time. I just didn't realize it would take all of my time. And if I had known that, I would not have done it. But now I'm halfway through and I kind of have to keep going.
Sure.
You're at mile 18.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You're almost there.
And I do think about that sometimes. I compare it to
Yeah.
marathoning because it's definitely a marathon and it's exhausting. But I'm going to keep going.
So what does that mean in pursuing your doctorate? You're at mile 18. How is that? How do you take your experience with running and apply it to?
I've never thought about that before, but that's a good analogy because, I do have a lot of the hard part behind me. I had some research sequences that were really intense, spent a lot of time reading and writing and researching. I never had a moment of free time, and that has passed. So gotten over that initial hump. And right now, it's not too bad. I've kind of settled into the program, much like I would have settled into a marathon at this point. But I've got some really hard parts ahead of me. I've got my dissertation ahead of me. And I'm not a good writer. I don't like writing. So I've got that ahead of me. And that'll be like 3 semesters in a row, probably, that I'm doing a lot of writing. My dissertation will end up being, 200 to 300 pages, and I can't believe I have to write that much.
Wow.
That's a large book.
Right. Yeah. So I've got that ahead of me that I'm just trying, like in a marathon, you can't think about what all you have ahead of you. You have to take it mile by mile.
Thank you.
And so that's kind of where I've put myself in the PhD journey too. I got to think about what's right in front of me.
Yes.
'Cause I can't take it if I think about everything I have coming up.
How was that affected prior to this? How has that affected your running?
Oh,
And then now, how has it transformed your running? What were your goals then to now as far as
my
running?
running, it feels like it's just in the trash right now. I've always, if you know
Living
me,
in the
I'm
gutter.
like gung ho about running. I've always been gung ho
Sure.
about running. I thought nothing would ever get in the way of me running every single day.
Sure.
Running 50 to 80 miles a week. But here I am, and I'm barely running right now. And
But you're in a season.
I'm exhausted. I'm just exhausted all the time. I work all day, and I got a new job 3 years ago too, and it's intense. And I leave my job every day, and I go right home and work on homework. And I'm doing it till like 11:30 at night. So I just cannot. I set my alarm, but I can't
You're a
get
dog.
up. I can't get up.
Listen, running, like you said, is something that we enjoy. I think some people look at all the running. I was at an AA meeting Sunday, and somebody asked me how many miles I'd ran this week, and I said, and I hate to even say it because they're just like, I said 94, and they were all, then the room is abuzz with
Yeah.
like, this guy's a freak show. I mean, it's like
He must not do anything.
he must not do anything,
Right.
And that's not hard. I enjoy that, but to think that I have to work all day and go back home and then sit down for 3-4 hours and do work on a dissertation sounds like
It's just
torture.
It feels like my whole day is hard, and even though I love running, getting up to go run in the morning is hard. And
Yes.
I have to get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock to do it, and I just can't. Can't
Yes.
make myself do it. And then the rest of the day, I'm like, man, I wish I would have gotten up and gone for a run because I so love it. And it's a great way to start your day. But a lot
She
of
has her own
mornings I
run
don't.
Start time.
I do have
the
my
Angie Briggs start
I
time.
do. Travis calls it lunchtime,
Yeah.
but it's usually, however, as late as I can possibly start and get a run in before I have to be at work at 8 is what time I run in the morning.
He gives me a hard time about my lunchtime runs.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes because I used to beat myself up about not getting up earlier, and sometimes I have intentions of getting up, and sometimes I do get up and run early, but sometimes I'm just like, I'm sleeping in. This
Yeah.
is nice, and I don't know why we put these weird, unrealistic expectations on ourselves.
I know, right?
But
Yeah.
we do, and so I'm gotten much better at that. And so don't beat yourself
Good.
up.
I try.
Got
yeah.
a lot going on.
It's like, it's okay to have different goals in running. I tell other people that. It's okay that you're not running, 50 plus miles a week anymore. It's okay to have different goals, but I do miss the times when I could be so intense with running and, qualifying for Boston every year and running Boston every year. I miss those days. And maybe, I have 2.5 years left probably in this PhD program. So I'm telling myself I'll get back to it then.
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
you will, and I think you're going to rediscover it. And I think we all have different seasons. When we were, and I'm sure Dusty, you have a similar story with when you took over Express,
Yeah.
and was running it and trying to learn it and figure that out. When we were going through getting the exceptional bean open, I remember once I ran Boston that year, April of 22. We immediately transitioned into figuring the exceptional bean out. And running, I can look at my Strava, and I had several weeks in a row where it was 0, and that's just nuts to me.
Yeah.
To think that I didn't run any, but I did not have the bandwidth at that time because it
Right.
was so all-consuming, exhausting, nerve-wracking, anxiety. What is this going to work? What have we done? I've quit my job. All the
Yeah.
things. This is
Oh,
a
yeah.
nightmare. And running was was way pushed to the side.
Yeah.
And so you'll get back there. I don't doubt that for a second. And so
Have to kind of rediscover the purpose behind what you're going to do.
Right.
I mean, I had to do the very same thing. I was
Okay.
the same. You couldn't hardly almost see where it didn't fit in to be super intense all the time. Now,
I struggled with that. It was so I ended up not running for a few weeks, and somebody told me one day, why don't you just go out there and do what you can?
yeah.
And I was like, I never really thought about that, but yeah, I don't have to. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. So I do.
Fun meter high.
Right, I do a lot of 3-mile runs. If you look at my Strava, it's a lot of 3-mile runs.
yes, fun meter high. I don't know. I hate that, but
Yeah.
because I'm the same. It's like if I'm not going to go out and run a 10-mile threshold, then what am I even doing? And that's
Right.
ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
I,
yeah.
I reference this all the time. Joey Yother.
Yeah.
Me and Jeff talked about it yesterday. One day I was running down South Jefferson, and he slid in beside me. He said, "Hey man, can I run with you?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "How far are you going?" He's like, "I don't know." Okay. I was like, "What pace you want to run?" He's like, "I don't care." I was like, "I need you to leave." I was like, "You are weirding me out, dude."
That's just Joey. That's Joey's approach.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we cannot be
Didn't
friends right
he-
now.
He didn't have a phone. He wasn't tracking anything. There was no watch involved. And now I'm looking forward to maybe getting to that season and where I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't care what my time is and what my pace is. So tell us about your running journey. Was this something that you did as a child? Were you athletic as a child? Did you play sports? When did your running journey begin? Tell us about that.
Yeah, growing up in Salina, we didn't have track, cross country. Nobody ran, except for just in basketball practice or whatever. Running always appealed to me. And my dad would tell me, "You'd be a good runner." I don't know why he said that, but I would try to run, and I thought I couldn't. I'd get real winded and thought that just meant I couldn't run. When I got to college, I would see people running around Tech's campus, and I was like, I really want to do that. And I was big into exercise. I took all kinds of step classes. I did the treadmill, all the machines, but I didn't run. But I really wanted to run. So eventually it occurred to me, maybe I can work my way up to running. And so that loop, if you're familiar with, Tech's campus, it's a 1.8 mile loop. I thought it was 2 back before we had watches and things like that. I thought it was a 2-mile loop. So it's like, I'm going to do a run walk and, eventually get to where I'm running more than I'm walking with the goal of making it all the way around that loop
Yes.
without stopping.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, can you imagine that? And that did seem like a big endeavor at the
Yes,
time.
of
And
course it did.
and I don't know how long it took me to get there, but I eventually got there, and I was so proud of that. And eventually, I was able to add on a little bit more.
Yes.
And I just caught the bug right away. I loved it. It felt so good to accomplish that and be able to run all the way around. I didn't even know what pace I was running or anything, but I just thought it was so cool that I ran that. I know that I ran that whole loop.
It is. It is. That's a very. I've heard similar experiences from so many people, especially that discovered running as adults. In the beginning, I didn't even know they made GPS watches. I didn't know that you could track it through Strava, and so I remember my first. I don't know. I probably ran for 3 months and never knew what pace I was running because it didn't occur to me that it mattered yet.
Yeah.
I was just happy that I was running 1 mile. Now I'm running 2 miles now without stopping.
Right.
And that to me was all the watershed moments. Okay, I've run 1, I've run 2, and it's a sense of accomplishment. And that first 5K, and I'm sure, when did you start running races?
First 5K. I was in a sorority in college, and we had a 5K race to raise money for our philanthropy. So I'm like, okay, I'm a runner now. I guess I'll do this race. And I ran that, and I finished, and I was dying. And I thought, that is as far as I'll ever be able to run, is that 3 miles. I'll never, I can't go any further than that.
Yes.
So, that.
Because at that time, you don't know the physiology of it.
Right.
You don't know what training.
I knew nothing.
You knew nothing.
Yeah.
And you just think to yourself, 3 miles seems bananas.
Oh, yeah.
And it really is. I tell people all the time, you think 5K short, go run one.
Right. Yeah.
It's a long way.
It sure is.
And I have found, I saw a quote today. I'm going to butcher it, I'm sure. But it said, getting fit and becoming, getting in shape is a spiritual journey disguised as a physical journey. And to me, that is in a nutshell exactly my experience. And as I began to get more fit, mentally, I got more fit. It helped me deal with a lot of things I was going through in my recovery and getting sober. Is that your experience?
Oh, yeah, big time. And I can butcher another quote, but it has something to do with, if you want to get in shape, exercise. If you want to change your life, run a marathon.
100%.
100%.
Yes.
I've experienced that too. And I had run into all kinds of challenges in life. And even in college, I went through some rough times, and running was my constant. It helped me feel in control when everything else was not in control.
Sure.
So it's been a huge part of my mental, spiritual, all of it, well-being.
And I know, we probably should have talked about this before the episode, and if we don't need to get in this, we can edit this out. I know you had your brother. You lost your brother at a young age.
Yeah.
And I'm sure running has been something that has helped you deal with
Big
loss.
time, yeah. Yeah, my brother, when he was 20 years old, he played football for Lambeth University in Jackson, Tennessee, and he was home for the summer, completely healthy, college athlete, worked out all the time. He'd actually just had me put together a running plan for him. He wanted to start running. And he was out with his girlfriend one night and just fell over, just passed out. And they were, we live in Salina around the lake, and so they were in this remote area by the lake, and she was screaming. And anyway, long story short, he when he fell over, he had died, and we didn't even know why. Turns out, it took us 3 months to get the autopsy results, and he had a heart defect that nobody knew about.
Wow.
And it went from him being completely healthy to killing him. And
How old were you?
I was, I think, 26.
Okay.
Close to 27. I'm 7 years older than him, and he was our little brother, but we acted kind of like, my twin sister and I acted like parents to him too. We were so close, and so it was just, devastating to say the least. That
Sure.
Turned our world upside down in more ways than one when that happened. And I was a runner then, and it was just, I don't know what I would have done without running, to be honest. It was just therapeutic, and the time that you can spend reflecting on things when you run is just huge to me. And so it was really important during that time to just have that time to myself, to be alone in my thoughts, to process my thoughts.
Yes.
That was a huge part in healing from that. It's something you never get over, but you kind of have to get through and adapt. And running was a big part of that for me.
Running has been, we've talked about it, Dusty and I have talked about it. It is, when I first got sober, I got into lifting weights, and I got into even CrossFit, and I did all these different. I did kickboxing. I was looking for anything to just something to do besides go to a bar, and so I kind of stumbled upon running. And out of all of these different things that have very useful, they're very worthwhile ways to get fit, running is the most transformative experience I have had. And I can have, like you said, I went, during sobriety, you have so many tough moments, and do I want to stay sober? And running changed my life. And I've also went through some loss in the last 10 years. And having running, I can go for a run and just things start to make sense, or I find gratitude, or I have had, moments on the road where I have sobbed, and so, and it's in a good way. And it's like you said, having running there, is a game changer. And I hate it for people who don't.
Oh, no, it's a positive way to deal with loss.
Yes.
And grief. And yeah, I'm very thankful for it.
CG, I know Dusty has said this, and I'm sure Mike has said this. Like, if I'm cranky,
Yeah.
CG's just
All the time.
I
Yeah.
can definitely tell either I've taken a couple of days off, or I've not ran, or I've not been able to run.
Right.
Yes. Well,
Please go.
thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah,
And so that, to me, is what this podcast is about how running can be, like I said, physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. And so I think when you're physically fit, all the other two kind of come along with it. And so that has been my experience. Now, we want to talk about your Boston Marathoning, okay, to get into a more positive spin here. 8 times, and you ran 8 years in a row?
No, 7 years in a row.
7 years in a row.
Yeah. The first year was 2011, and it took me quite a while to qualify that first time, and I thought I'd be a one and done.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so how did you even get the idea that this was a thing you
Yeah.
wanted to do? I'm sure we need 4 more episodes for
It's
that.
for real. I could talk about it forever. But, like I said, I started running in college, and I was
Yes.
running I thought it was a big deal when we ran 5 miles. We went to Cane Creek Park and ran 5 miles.
yeah.
Well, then my twin sister, who was in law school and living with me at the time, decided to run a marathon. She wasn't even a runner, and she's like, I'm going to run a marathon.
That's
And
nuts to me.
it is, but that was when Oprah Winfrey had run a marathon.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, if
Okay.
Oprah can do it, I can do it.
I like that.
And so she trained on a treadmill and ran this marathon.
This is nuts. This is all
Yeah,
nuts to me.
It's crazy. But yeah, so we, of course, went and watched her run this marathon.
Where
And I
did she
still
go?
thought it was
Where'd she run?
crazy. Nashville.
Oh, yeah, Music City?
Yeah, back then it was a Music City
City.
marathon.
Yes.
And it was still
City or
pretty
country, was it
new.
country music then, or Music City? I can't remember
I
now.
don't even know, but it was pretty new. That was back in 2002 or 3.
Oh,
so it hadn't
wow,
been around
okay.
very long. So we went and watched, and it was pretty boring. If you've ever watched a marathon,
Shout out CG for
yeah.
going to all my
Yeah,
marathons.
for
God, I
real.
love you so much.
But I ran over to the finish line to see. I wanted to see her finish.
yeah.
And I mean, that was a life-changing moment right there. If you've never watched a marathon finish, just get ready.
Yes.
When I watched, I was just so inspired, not just by her, but by everybody who came through that finish line. And I was like, I'm going to be here next year. I'm going to run this next year. And I did.
I dig it.
And it was terrible. The weather was terrible. I was not trained well. I think the furthest I had run, I'm so embarrassed to say this, was like 12 miles.
That is
I
insanity
didn't even
to
know
me.
what to call a full marathon. So I ran into somebody I knew when I was hanging out waiting on it to start, and they asked me which one I was doing, and I said, I'm doing the whole. I'm doing the whole marathon. I didn't even know it was called a full marathon. I said, I'm doing the whole.
Doing the whole marathon. I'm gonna run the whole thing.
Go there, lad.
Yeah, I'm sure they were. I'm sure they were dying laughing. But it was tough. It started out pouring down rain. I went into the McDonald's there by Centennial Park and got a trash bag out of the trash can and put it on to protect myself from the rain. And then by the time we got to like Shelby Park, it was 90 degrees.
Oh, no.
Then we were steaming, and I wasn't prepared. And so I finished in 5 hours and 17 minutes. It was brutal. But when I finished, I was like, I know I can do that faster.
That's it.
That's
That's it.
it
That's
was-
one of the
yeah.
two.
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's either you're going to cross the finish line, never again,
Yep.
or I can do that faster.
Oh, and the whole time you're running, you're like, never
Yeah,
again.
usually in the last 10K, you're like, this is This is
Why?
the dumbest thing, and I'm never doing it
I don't
again.
have to do this. Why am I doing
Why am I
this?
doing
Yeah.
this? I will tell you this: you were because I knew you in college, 80 Pi, and you were friends with I knew a lot of those girls, the story girls, Brianna, and so I knew a lot of those. We had a lot of common friends, and of course, I would see you out at Spanky's. You were at Spanky's a lot less than I was.
Oh, I can't imagine that.
Well, maybe not. I'm not trying to tell on nobody, but I was at Spanky's a lot. I was a fixture, and so when I got sober and I got social media, we became friends on one of them. And you posted you were running Boston, and I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know what to think of that, and then I researched it, and then I was like you said about your sister. I was like, as I started to get better at running, I thought, okay, if Angie can run Boston, maybe I can run Boston. And so you were a huge inspiration for me to try to start running. And then I also started to have, of course, what do you have when you train for a marathon? Injuries.
Yeah.
And so then I began to annoy her. This person she doesn't know at all would just message her about his,
I'm a
my
good
knees.
person to ask. I've had them all. I'm pretty sure.
I was like, Angie, I know you're not qualified, but my knee's hurting real bad. And her answer was always, well, I don't really know. You probably should just take some time off. And I was just like, idiot.
Right.
That can't possibly be the
that.
answer. I'm just like, you got to have something else. Hey, Angie, we are right in the middle of this thing, and I don't want to leave anything out. We've got a ton of stuff to cover. Would you be a pal and come back? Maybe we do another episode.
Yeah.
Guys,
Part 2.
hey, you know what we missed?
Thank you to Willow Window.
There we go.
Pay the bills, man.
Jonathan and Willow Window, my
you very
man,
much.
Express,
Footwear and Running.
Jimbo,
Sight and Sound Creative.
The Exceptional Bean, Runner Dudes Coaching. What did we miss?
Man, that's it. That's
CG's
it.
Boutique. Oh, next episode we got to talk about the haunted half. We talked about it a little bit. We want to talk about the Red, White, and Boom and some races. So we'll get it together. Guys, this is only episode 16. We'll get this thing figured out. See you in a little bit.
The Runner Dudes podcast is sponsored by Express Footwear and Runner Dude Coaching and Consulting. Produced by Jimmy Thorpe at sightandsoundcreative.com.